Tommy, great to see you. Welcome to Pop Alternative.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
We're chatting about season 5 of Sweet Magnolias dropping really soon. And it's interesting, right? Because this is your third season on the show. And,
Yes.
like the first season of playing a character, I feel like is very interesting because it's equal playing field for everyone, right? Like you've never played Olivia before. We've never seen this character before. What's that like for returning for season 3? Like, do you feel like you understand this character a lot or you're still learning about this character?
Totally. That's a really good question. I think that with her, I think that when I first saw, the character breakdown and everything for this character, I think that she came very naturally to me, but at the same time, the more material that you get, the more information that you have. So it's always like the like you can know so much about a character and still have more to learn, like same way that you can know a lot about a person and still have a lot more to learn. You can know somebody for years and years and years, and then suddenly one day you just find out that they're left-handed.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing where it's like there's always more to learn about a being, and it's always so fun to when a character kind of drops new information about themselves. It's like, oh, this just expands her for me, and makes her just that much more interesting. So I think it's more fun to learn a little bit more and implement that into who she is.
What would you say was the mindset for you and preparation for season 3 versus season 5 specifically? Like, what was that like? What were the key differences for you specifically?
I think that you know okay, I actually think that for the first season that I was in,
Yeah.
it was very much uh kind of building a character and kind of taking the information that I had
Mhm.
and making her feel real to me. And now I think going into this season, she already felt very real to me, and I knew exactly who she was and how she would, say these things and how she would react to certain situations. And I also think that her dynamics with the other characters were already so set in place, and I think it's so much easier to step into that, especially when I'm coming back onto a set where I'm so close with so much of the cast now, as opposed to just getting to know everybody. Well, most people. I actually have this funny thing that I knew like half the cast before it from like other projects when I first joined this. Like one of the actresses, Harlan, she was legitimately my best friend in middle school. Like just it just so happened that way. And then Carson and I were close friends from I Am Frankie, which we did years and years and years ago.
Mhm.
So I had known a lot of the cast before. Me and Logan did a movie together, but I didn't know them as their characters interacting with my character, right? So after 2 years of that, you start to understand the dynamics and build the dynamics sometimes too between these characters. So I think it made it a lot easier to just kind of like step into it. And I had to step into it because I had just come from Thailand like 2 weeks prior to shooting this.
Absolutely. And it's interesting as well because, you look at something like Sweet Magnolias, you look at other projects like you've done, past projects that are like Catch a Killer, and then like you look at like The Devil's Mouth that's coming out, like it's all story like it's different characters, different worlds, but it's all storytelling at the end of the day. So I'm curious
Yes.
how separate are past things for you compared to something like Sweet Magnolias or The Devil's Mouth. Like, do you bring things from past projects to those projects, mindset preparation wise, like completely separate once you wrap them?
I think that every project is so different. I was just talking to somebody about this, how they were asking what my process was. And I was telling them, I'm like, it is totally different every single time because the situation's different every single time. The character is different every single time. There's some characters that feel like they just come so easy and they're just there whenever I want to reach for them. And then there's other characters that I feel like I have to build a little bit more and I have to create a little bit more. Um, so the process is always different, but I think that if I brought anything from other projects to other projects, it would be less, I think, bringing the project itself and more bringing like the human experiences that I got while filming the project. It
Yeah.
would be something like that. And I think that that is kind of, that's why like I always tell people that I just love people. And I think that that's why I love my job so much, is because basically my job as an actress, I think, is understanding your character, aka understanding people. And so the more people that I get to know, the more experiences that I have, I think it just makes me a better rounded actress and it makes me better at my job. So I think if I was bringing anything from another project, it wouldn't be so much the on-set experience as the off-set experience.
That's a good that's a good segue to my next question. It's almost like you knew what I was going to ask. You're a pro.
Oh,
You're a
maybe I
professional.
did. I'm a little clairvoyant.
Well, no, because it's interesting, right? Because you talk about kind of the process and all that, and the people and the community component of it, and it's interesting, right? Because Sweet Magnolia specifically has an amazing fan base globally that watch like the episodes and love it. And I know from an acting perspective, you're talking about your process a little bit. I know like when like you're not really thinking about the audience much when you are filming because you're focusing on the character and everything, right? But given that the show is like this kind of show where everyone is really kind of invested in like what's happening with characters, I mean, previous seasons of Sweet Magnolias have ended with big cliffhangers and everything. Are you ever conscious of the audience member watching Sweet Magnolias while you're in production at all, or is that something you think about after you wrap, so to speak?
I think that it happens within the process, but not necessarily, at least for me, but not necessarily while we're doing it. So I think that like it's a very common thing, at least for me, that we would have a day of filming and you try not to think too much about like the outcome when you're actually on set and you're filming. I think that then at that time, my responsibility is my character,
Yeah.
right? So like my responsibility is less so how are people going to perceive this and more so what would Olivia truly do. That's kind of where my priority is in that moment. And then I think that the audience is a thought later where like for example we all finish filming and we all go out to dinner and we say, oh my god, they're going to love this part, or oh, I wonder what they're going to think about this. I think that
Yeah.
it's definitely something that is, we love our audience and we want to know what they think. And that's something that's very important to us is how things come across and people feeling like we're remaining true to our characters. And I think that that is super important to us, but it definitely is something that we try not to bring on set as much as possible, just because I think that it's you know more for the audience that we don't bring those thoughts on set, because we truly can do our characters justice, which then serves them well.
It's interesting too that you mentioned, at base camp or at lunch, like talking about things, because that was kind of where that question really came from, right? We're both
Mhm.
thinking about the audience is like, you wrap something, you're like, oh wow, like people are really gonna love this sequence. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, and I feel like that's always gonna happen. You know what I mean? Especially like when you're passionate, you love what you do, and you're excited to be there and everything.
Yeah.
Did want to kind of ask because you're also a musician, and I find it interesting because you're a storyteller essentially, doing acting and also doing music as well. Do you feel like they complement each other? Do they work as a tag team, or are they completely separate storytelling kind of journeys for you?
I think that they always tend to, at least for me, work together. I think that I've met so many incredible musicians on set throughout the years, and I always feel like there's always like a jam sesh somewhere within like
Hmm.
every project I've ever done that doesn't ever always like necessarily make it on screen, but it's still a part of the experience.
Yeah.
I always feel like the most musically inspired when I'm working on a project, just because meeting new people and doing new things and being out of the ordinary really, I think, invokes a lot of like uh creativity
Sure.
in a person, or at least in me. And I think that that always kind of goes hand in hand. And I also have a lot of songs that I wrote about experiences being on set or
Yep.
people that I met on set, so it all kind of intertwines. There's no way, I think, to keep it totally separate. Especially when they both mean so much to me, like emotionally, and both of them have so much to do with human emotion that it just kind of has to cross over somehow. But yeah, I think that it always kind of goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. I am really interested as well because, with Sweet Magnolias, I mean, I've talked to a lot of your cast over like for past seasons as well. And, family is always like the focal point. Like it's about a family, it's a family show. And I think that's something that never really changes with Sweet Magnolias, in my opinion. But I feel like something that can constantly happens with this show, and you really get the ensemble experience with this, where it happens with multiple characters, and multiple characters are in different stages of this, in my opinion. But like these characters that are lost, doing soul searching, self reflection, right? And I feel like more like certain characters are more lost than others or figuring things out more in Sweet Magnolias. But I'm wondering from your perspective, like just in general, you can like relate this to Sweet Magnolias and Olivia, but like past projects, is it more kind of fun or challenging to play characters that are doing like self-reflection, soul searching, slice of life, figuring things out? Because from the viewer perspective, like they don't know they're lost, right? So I always find
Mm.
that interesting. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's just having characters with depth is just always so interesting and it's always so much fun to play with. And I think that, the whole soul searching thing, maybe it's because I'm a Pisces, I don't know, but I think it's very relatable to me because I think I'm always like, there's never a time that I'm not trying to figure something out in my head or somehow be a better person or handle this situation the way that I'm in a way that I'm proud of and things like that. And I think that me and all of my friends are very much like that. I mean, I my best friends and I, like, we literally just sit around and talk about life. Like that's 90% of what we do, just in different locations. Like is we really like that's what we do. And offer advice and take that and then, kind of make it your own, I guess. So I think that having a character and having a series where there is so much of that going on, to me just feels very honest and feels very real. Because I think sometimes there's a difference between having a character like know who they are, but also having like I think it's also important to have a character that is still growing and still
Yep.
changing because people aren't like it's that whole thing where it's like, oh well, that's out of character. Maybe it's not. Like maybe they're growing, maybe they're changing, maybe they're evolving and becoming something new because I see it every day. I see people change every day and
Yeah.
make new decisions and grow out of bad patterns and things like that. So I think that it's very honest and I like that about it.
Really well said. Two more
Thank you.
questions before we wrap. Another one about Sweet Magnolias. I mean, June 11th, season five is going to be on Netflix worldwide. People going to check that out. Without kind of big spoilers, anything like you could say about season five, tone wise, like, element wise, that is a bit kind of, different than past seasons of Sweet Magnolias? Like anything like that specifically you could say about season five exclusively?
Ooh, I think that there's a lot of at least with I think that where my focus always kind of lies is with the like my because my character doesn't really speak to like the older characters much.
No.
So I think that my world in Sweet Magnolias lies with, Annie and that whole the
Hmm.
like younger generation. And I think that a lot of them are dealing with like growing up and people not doing what you expect them to do and not knowing what to do with that but just kind of figuring it out one step at a time. And I think that it's so important and I think that um there's a lot of like unexpected things that come up in these young characters lives that I think is going to really resonate with the audience. And I think that all the conversations that you want to happen, they do happen. Like it's just very interesting. And I know that's a little vague, but I just think that it's very honest the way that these young characters do like deal with a lot of things and the way that they don't immediately know what to do. And they
Hmm.
have to go to their friends for comfort and for advice. I think that's another huge thing. Like I love the way that especially like these young female characters go to each other for advice on not even just what to do in situations, but how to feel
Yeah.
about situations. And I know that me and my real life girlfriend. I mean, and actually, funny enough, like Annalise is truly one of my best friends in the world. I'm seeing her tonight. Like I see her all the time. And you know, it's so sweet because we have this scene together this season where we're just, you know, sitting and talking about like, and we were saying like this literally is like us. Like we have these conversations all the time where it's just like I'm feeling like this, but I don't even know if I should be feeling like this. And then it's just so real. I love it. And I'm really, really excited for people to feel like they're a part of that.
Absolutely. And then, last question. I mean, there's so much happening in the horror thriller kind of genre. So many kind of things are happening and it's so exciting. And I feel like the fans just eat it all up. You know what I mean? Whether it's a survival thriller, whether it's like
Mhm.
a horror movie, like they love it all. I mean, you have worked in this genre in the past. You have a really big kind of movie coming out this summer, which is really exciting as well. What do you like the most about working in that kind of genre of like horror and thriller specifically?
Um, you know, something about that I find really interesting and the scripts that I'm really drawn to are when because in a horror thriller genre, of course, like the main thing that you're worried about is like these characters like getting hurt or like
Yep.
dying, you know, like that's the main thing you go into these movies with is like who's gonna die and like who's gonna get hurt and like what's gonna happen, like the bad things that are gonna happen to these characters. And something that I've realized that makes these so interesting is when you have characters that you care about. So not just having these, you know, characters where it's like I don't really care if any of these people die. Like, you know, they all kind of suck. Like I feel like it's so powerful when you have interesting endearing characters with interesting dynamics between each other where you're like, "Oh no, nothing bad can happen to any of them because I want to see, like, I want more of them." And I think that that's what keeps it so interesting. And I think that that is what's so fun and fulfilling as an actor is to, you know, like no one cares if you don't have an interesting character if that character dies. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that that's what's so fun is to make you is to like be an actress and to like make or to do your best to make the audience care
Mhm.
what happens to your character. Even if they're not like a perfect person, you know? Like even if they're just to have something interesting enough that people are like, I don't want to lose them for even one scene, you know? So I think that that's really fun is to play with that dynamic of like make the audience care what terrible things happen to your character.
Absolutely. No, so well said. And yeah, no, we can't wait to see all those projects. And we can't wait for season 5 of Sweet Magnolias on Netflix June 11th. Thank you so much for your time. It was really great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. You asked fantastic questions.
I really appreciate that. Your Instagram is just your name, right? If people want to keep up to date with everything.
Yeah, Tommy, two M's, one I, and then Rose like the flower.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turn. YouTube.com/PopTurn for previous episodes. You can catch Tommy Rose as Olivia in season 5 of Sweet Magnolias, dropping June 11th on Netflix. Until next time, this is Tommy Rose and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.